Let's talk about freedom, America. Who wants to talk about freedom with me? Who wants to talk about freedom? Did you know, actually, do you know the law? Do you know the laws? Do you have any idea? So the Schenck decision is absolute bullshit. This is all about the Schenck decision. It's already overturned and settled. There's so many. Okay, so I'm just going to go through like a whole bunch of court cases that either nullified or changed the definition, the threshold, the test of what's dangerous speech and what isn't dangerous speech. But first of all, America, do you have the right to burn an American flag? It's a simple yes or no question. Do you have the right to set the American flag on fire in the name of protesting, democracy or whatever the hell you want to protest? Do you have that right? Yes, of course you do. Of course you have that right. If you didn't know that, you don't know shit about the First Amendment or America's laws. What are you, some sort of traitor? Are you some sort of treasonous goddamn fucking China taking freedom away from... The 1989 Supreme Court case, Texas v. Johnson. It's already been litigated. It's settled law. You can torch American flag in the name of this and the name of that. You can burn the American flag up or you can keep it, intact. It's up to you. In fact, if it's dirty, it's respectful to burn the flag. And if, you're protesting or you're in distress. So the 1989 Texas v. Johnson case, the Supreme Court case, Texas v. Johnson, also the 1990 U.S. v. Eichmann, but both of them protects flag burning as political protest, and therefore it's protected by the First Amendment. Gregory Lee Johnson, to give you background on Texas v. Johnson, Gregory Lee Johnson, goes outside of the Dallas City Hall, right in the front of Dallas City Hall, Texas, and he sets an American flag on fire, just right in front of him. So right down the City Hall steps or in the sidewalk or whatever, so in protest of Ronald Reagan's policies. Right, 1989's Reagan. And that makes sense. Ronald Reagan was a piece of shit. So Greg Johnson was sentenced to 1 year in jail, and Gregory Lee Johnson is going to get a $2,000 fine. Now, if there's a bedrock principle underlying the First Amendment, it's that the government may not prohibit the expression of an idea simply because society finds that idea offensive or disagreeable. Freedom of speech means you protect unpopular speech. If you don't believe that unpopular speech should be allowed to be spoken, then you truly don't believe in the First Amendment. In fact, because we in America have the right to set our own flag on fire, that is, what other country could you do that? Some other country, you set the flag on fire, they're going to chop off your head. Right, they're going to rip out your spleen and take your esophagus and tie it around your head. That's what other countries do if you burn the flag. But here in America, because we believe in freedom, because freedom is so robust, the freedom of speech, because of that, that's what makes America great. Freedom of speech don't mean shit if we don't protect the right to burn our own goddamn flag. Now, you shouldn't burn Canada's flag. That's just rude, okay? Don't burn Canada's flag. That's just rude and disrespectful. Why would you burn Canada's flag? You should always burn the American flag. That just shows how big and strong of an American that you actually are. Actually, just kidding. But when we're forbidden from burning our own flag, then that's when we've lost our freedom-loving nation. Or then that's when we're no longer America. So I want to talk about the different standards of free speech. There's so many different versions of free speech. And then eventually with Schenck, we're going to get to when is free speech dangerous? Unless I get parched. I think, okay, so there's lots of different standards for free speech. 1971, Cohen v. California says that you're allowed to wear a jacket that says "fuck the draft" on it. Paul Robert Cohen wasn't disturbing the peace. The Supreme Court is going to uphold the right to freedom of speech. They're going to uphold the First Amendment, just like they upheld the First Amendment for good old Gregory Johnson of Texas v. Johnson, 1989, which is settled case law, right? Settled case law. Yes, you can burn that flag. In fact, you should. That's preferred. You should burn. Especially if it's dirty. If you don't burn it and it's dirty, then that's disrespectful. People throw up dirty ass flags. Talk about disrespect, flying a dirty ass flag. So freedom of speech. We have a right to burn flags. We have a right to wear a jacket that says "fuck the draft," right? When it comes to libel and slander, the best defense against it is the truth. That's Rex v. Zinger, 1735. The People v. Croswell, 1804. And then in Erie v. Paps AM, a 2000 case, public nudity did not mean being naked in a building. The First Amendment protects the right of a private establishment to have a bunch of naked dancers. So if you say no public nudity, okay, that's fine, right? You can't walk around the street naked. But if you own a business, everybody in that business can walk around naked. So we're allowed to walk around naked. We're allowed to say, fuck the draft, wearing jackets. We're allowed to burn flags. So we really believe in freedom of speech. Now, there's a lot of contradictions, and Schenck is just fucking bullshit. You shouldn't even learn Schenck. Maybe just to start out with. You should learn Schenck just like you should learn Plessy versus Ferguson. Schenck is just, it's overruled. They've contradicted too many times, and it's such horse shit. It comes from the Espionage Act, comes from Woodrow Wilson, who's a known segregationist and pig fucker. Woodrow Wilson was a known pig fucker. Don't take my word for it. Read your history. So Garrison v. Louisiana, 1964. It said malice doesn't factor into the equation. So if you're a publisher and you're going around and you're just saying, you know what, this is a lie, that's a lie, and it's not clearly sarcasm or a parody, it's not a joke. You're a newspaper and you're sitting there saying that person did this and that and this and none of it's true. Well, that's not fair. That's not nice. Garrison v. Louisiana, 1964. They say that it doesn't matter if you have bad intention. If you're spreading lies when you're supposed to be a newspaper of record, a newspaper of the truth, and you're spreading lies, then that's all you need in order to, stop a person from doing that for libel or slander. Now, the New York Times Company versus Sullivan, 1964, it says that in order to be hit with libel or slander, not only is there a bunch of lies, not only is there a bunch of untruths, but the lies must be intentionally and maliciously stating. So not just a disregard for the truth. Oh, sure, print it. Who gives a shit? Oh, you heard a rumor? Print it up. Right? Unless you say the rumor says this, right? Just go ahead and print it up. So that's a contradiction between Garrison v. Louisiana. Both of these are 1964 Supreme Court cases, so they got, they're schizophrenic in 64. They're like, oh, you can say whatever you want to say. You just, can't be fast and loose with the truth and then, end up injuring people because you didn't care about the truth. It all comes down to the truth. That's Garrison v. Louisiana. Or does it come down to it being a lie and that the person intentionally and maliciously said the lie in order to, cause harm and bad things to happen? So, New York Times v. Sullivan, Garrison v. Louisiana are complete contradictions. So where's freedom of speech at? Is it disregard for the truth, or is it both intentional and malicious lying? Okay, now we're at the main enchilada. Schenck versus the United States. So this is 1919. We just won the World War. We're in the World War. They passed the Espionage Act the same time that we're going into World War. So 1919, the 2 years after we got into the war, but it ended in 1918. But I guess it ended officially in 1921. So 1919, you got this, guy, Charles, old Chuck Schenck. Just a humble man, old Chuck Schenck, just, the socialist that lives down the road in Philadelphia. Isn't that the city of brotherly love? Didn't we have like a government, or we wrote a document or something there, like a declaration maybe, or a constitution or something? I don't know. Who gives a shit, right? So Charles Schenck, Charles Schenck is a socialist, lives down the road in Philadelphia, so he's just, an American hanging out, and he's going to get arrested and thrown in jail, right? Someone's going to put their hands on him and force him into a pen and, falsely arrest, all these, grabbing a hold, that's assault charges, that's abuse of power, but Woodrow Wilson and the Supreme Court, they all went along with this fucking charade. Woodrow Wilson was a totalitarian, authoritarian piece of shit, worse than Castro. Castro probably got his domestic surveillance and all his, throwing political prisoners in jail from Woodrow Wilson. So Woodrow Wilson's a piece of shit, right? Just absolute piece of shit. And he's targeting socialist, anarchist, and peace activists. That's who Woodrow Wilson hates. The socialists, the people that care about others. So Charles Schenck is a humble socialist from Philadelphia, and he's going to print up a flyer, and he's going to print up 15,000 copies of this one-page flyer. Now, it's 1919. This is, almost 100 years ago to the date. So Charles Schenck distributes a leaflet, one-page leaflet, to the people that were inducted into the draft that said, assert your rights, citizens. Don't be intimidated. Resist the draft. The draft violates the 13th Amendment. 13th Amendment forbids slavery or involuntary servitude. You force me to go fight and kill poor people over there when it says in the 13th Amendment, you can't force me. Involuntary servitude. So with liberty and light, this is what the leaflet is asking. Charles Schenck asks the Americans who are being drafted, are you with liberty and light, or are you with war and darkness? So the First Amendment protects him. My understanding of the First Amendment, but it's not going to protect him in 1919 because we were at war, which we're still at war today. So if they want to go ahead and say, well, the Schenck is good law, it's terrible law. But they could try to make an argument, we're at war right now, and you can't speak out against the war no matter what, you sons of bitches. Now, Woodrow Wilson did hate the socialists. He says, such creatures of passion and disloyalty, anarchy must be crushed out. If you're not patriotically in love with me and in love with our war, then that means you're not a good American. First Amendment says you cannot pass a law abridging the freedom of speech, and yet here's Woodrow Wilson passing the Espionage Act and the Sedition Act, which abridges the freedom of speech. Okay, so Charles Schenck is going to get fucked, right? Charles Schenck, all he's doing is printed up a flyer, and he's passing these flyers around, sending them through the mail, and then they get home, and then they read the flyer, and they're like, I could think for myself, so this doesn't sway me one way or the other, but it was interesting reading. I can consider a fault without actually believing in it. So, Charles Schenck is sitting there telling them to, resist the draft. And don't be intimidated. He's sitting there telling everybody to do this. Now, the Schenck decision is going to come down like, what's her name? Miley Cyrus in a cannonball, right? She's going to come at you like a cannonball. Wartime circumstances, yeah, you have the right to speak. Unless we're at war, then shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. And it's going to be Oliver Wendell Holmes, and it's a unanimous decision. All 9 of the Supreme Court justices is not going to stand up to Woodrow Wilson. And they're going to set the standard for freedom of speech, which is clear and present danger. Who knows where they got that shit, but apparently if you pass out a bunch of flyers that say, don't go to the draft, resist, you're an American, be free, then that's a crime. That's a crime worthy of you going to jail. And, Charles Schenck is going to go to jail. Charles Schenck, he's going to go to jail for 6 months in prison. I think this is, Louis Brandeis. This is Oliver Wendell Holmes. Unanimous decision. So this is the Schenck decision of 1919, the Supreme Court case. This is just dumb, dead. This is a Plessy versus Ferguson kind of law. It's Latin. It's dead language. Nobody should use Schenck. Clear and present danger. When I think about clear and present danger, just think about that phrase for a second. So that's the standard. If somehow somebody uses speech, right? Speech in the press, write, publish, speak, just utter. If you just utter, back in 1919, that the war is bad, that's clear and present danger. But to me, clear and present danger is somebody that's, raising the gun up to you. Right? They can have the gun, but if they pull the gun out and they're raising it to you, you got a right to defend yourself. 100%. That's clear and present danger. That is clear and imminent danger. That's clear and present danger right in front of your face. I lived in Pueblo, Colorado, and this is the reason why I left this shithole of a town. Crime is all over the place. So there's a guy that was next door. Every time the police were called, he would run away, but he was attacking women, his girlfriend. He was damaging property. He was stealing shit. He was destroying property. The guy was a menace. The guy was out of control. And then the last time, I called the police on like 2 or 3 times because he kept fucking with me, and every time the cops came, he would run away. Cops aren't going to do shit. What, chase a real criminal? No, they'd rather harass a lawful person. That's easier, right? Harassing lawful people, but a criminal, oh, jeez. That actually might be a challenge right there. So this asshole that's been fucking around all day is going to stand right outside my fence. I called dispatch, and they tell me I got to go inside. So as an American, I don't have a right to stand on my own front lawn. This motherfucker is a criminal, violent, destroying property, attacking people. All these things are fine and dandy with the police in Pueblo, Colorado, with the dispatcher. They're all fine and okay with that. But to me, that guy was menacing, and it was a clear and present danger. It was clear and present. Yeah, he's staring at me, and he's not just doing it. He's just, standing there staring at me. But what if I go out there and I stand right across from him? I'm on my side, he's on his side, and we're just staring at each other. Yeah, I'm sure that's nothing, right? That's not going to break off. It was menacing, and it was a clear and present danger. That's a clear and present danger to me. The threat of violence, some sort of bad thing that's actually happening. But Schenck, all he did was just write up a one-page flyer telling people to resist the draft. And then he used the Constitution. The 13th Amendment forbids slavery. And this is involuntary servitude. Unless you're convicted of a crime, you can't, do involuntary servitude. And so therefore, the whole clear and present danger standard is bullshit. But this is the standard for the freedom of speech. When does speech become dangerous? When it's clear and present that danger is on its way. They're going to use the well-known metaphor. You can't yell fire in a crowded theater, right? If I was in a theater and I was like, fire! There's a fire in here! Or if you're on an airplane and you say, bomb! There's a bomb on board! Everybody get down! There's a bomb on board! That would create a panic. And yeah, you don't want that to happen, but it's a ridiculous comparison. It's a ridiculous analogy. So because Charles Schenck wrote a flyer, put it in an envelope, licked the envelope, put a stamp on it, put it in a mailbox, and then the person got it in the mailbox and pulled it out and read it, there's a clear and present danger? What's the clear and present danger with that? That seems insane. That seems crazy. So America, we have a right to wear a jacket that says, fuck the draft. We could burn the flag, right? We could burn the flag. We could have private nudity. We could have nudity in public establishments if that's, the rules. So we have, this very expansive freedom of speech. But in 1919, we weren't even allowed to write on a piece of paper that we disagreed with the policy and send it to our friends and family and buddies and other whatnot. So this is the espionage. The Espionage Act is going to, fuck over lots of people. There were some people that couldn't send out their magazines because the government thought that, they didn't like the content. And it was just their opinion. Usually it's like racist and anti-Semitism and shit. But that's insane to think that the post office could stop a subscription to a newspaper, So in the Schenck case, apparently, in America, 1919, during World War I, under Woodrow the Fuhrer Wilson, the guy passing out pieces of paper with words written on them was a clear and present danger. Not at all. Not even close. Not even. It's kind of some of these Supreme Court cases, it seems like if the racist, the Brandenburg case, basically this racist piece of shit, he's allowed to be a racist piece of shit. So when it's about racism and anti-Semitism and sexism and just, horrible content, hustler, right? Just absolute, they defend it and they protect it, which, I think that they should. So what's my point here? It's not a clear and present danger. It's not a clear and present danger. You know, I was presented with clear and present danger, but somebody just writing on a piece of paper, somebody wearing a jacket with words written on it, a private establishment with, you know, naked people. In America, we should embrace freedom. We should embrace, you know, especially the first freedom. Our first freedom, which is collectively called freedom of expression, but our first freedom is press and speech and petition and assembly and religion, which, you know, that's the lamest one. But assembly, petition, speech, what else? Petitions, press, and freedom of the press. So the Espionage Act fucks over Schenck. He goes to jail for 6 months just for passing out, you know, pieces of paper that had words written on them that the Supreme Court didn't like. Eugene Debs is going to get fucked over. He's going to get jailed, and then he's going to die shortly after his release. Bill Haywood's a socialist, going to get fucked over by the Espionage Act, and then the fantastic, charismatic Emma Goldman. She's an anarchist. So all my heroes of the last century was fucked over by the Espionage Act. Emma Goldman, Bill Haywood, Eugene Debs. Go look at Eugene Debs. He made a speech against the war. That's why he goes to jail forever. Robert Goldstein made a film about the American Revolution, and somehow he goes to jail because the British were portrayed in a, you know, negative light. They were portrayed in a negative light, and yet when it comes to, you know, the war or whatever. So how the fuck? Anyway, so Charles Goldstein, for making a movie about the American Revolution, because they didn't say good things about our allies in the World War I, he's going to go to jail. He's going to go to jail. Eugene Debs is going to go to jail. Bill Haywood and Emma Goldman, they either get exiled or they go to jail too. So now I'm going to just read off a bunch of cases that contradict the Schenck decision, right? The Schenck decision. I already told you, you know, several different standards of when does speech become dangerous. In the 1971 case, the New York Times versus the United States, this is where the New York Times is allowed to publish the Pentagon Papers in spite of the government claiming that it infringes upon national security. The government must prove that it infringes upon their national security. They must prove the case that because the New York Times published the Pentagon Papers, A, B, and C, and D, it happened. It incited violence. It, you know, put people in the military at risk. What was the danger? What was the damage done with the Pentagon Papers? 1971 case proves that Julian Assange is, you know, should be a free man. So the Schenck decision. The Schenck decision is, you know, should be shanked. We should shank the Schenck decision. So the 1969 Brandenburg decision nullifies the 1951 Dennis decision. The 1931 Neer versus Minnesota has a different kind of test. Even Holmes is going to reverse his clear and present danger standard that year in a case called Abrams versus the United States in 1919. So you got the 1969 Brandenburg decision, you got the 1919 Abrams decision, you got the 1931 Neer versus Minnesota decision, and there's a three-pronged test in 1931 Neer versus Minnesota. That has a more solid, you know, standard than just saying clear and present danger. That's not enough. It's too vague. And even, you know, Oliver Wendell Holmes is going to contradict himself. So in 1951, the Dennis v. United States Supreme Court case, 6-2 decision, they said it's not clear and present danger, but grave and probable danger. Which means, what? Your life is under attack? Grave and probable danger. When Dennis is just a communist who organized the Communist Party. And that's it. And they threw him in jail because they said, oh, well, you know, our understanding of communists is that they're violent and they won't overthrow the government. So then there's Hartzell v. U.S. So that changes clear and present danger, right? 1951 Dennis v. U.S. changes it. Hartzell v. U.S. is a 1944 case where Justice Frank Murphy points out 1944 we're going to actually use the Espionage Act. 1944, the old Espionage Act. You remember that 30 years ago? Why are we doing this 30-year-old law? We still got it on the books. Espionage Act is still on the books, going after my heroes, going after Julian Assange, Chelsea Manning, and Edward Snowden. So the 1944 case, Hartzell v. U.S., it lessens and lowers the standard. This World War I veteran is just passing all this literature out to everybody. So he's doing the exact same crime that Schenck was doing, right? Passing out this literature. Wrote a letter to people and passed it out to people. Dennis v. U.S., all he did was just form a political party. 1931, Neer v. Minnesota. This is a guy that was publishing information about the, I want to say, police were testifying, and then they said, the court says, no, we don't have a fair trial if you're going to print up what the police said. I think. I don't know. I do know for sure that the 1931 Neer versus Minnesota gave 3 exceptions to freedom of speech. So you got absolute freedom of speech, except 1, when it reveals crucial military information, 2, if it contains obscenity, and 3, it may directly incite acts of violence. So if it, directs acts of violence, reveals crucial military information, contains obscenity, then therefore, the First Amendment does not protect it. That's a test that I can understand. Just clear and present danger. Well, that motherfucker called me a motherfucker, and I was like, oh man, this is clear and present danger. So I punched him in his face. Maybe, I don't know. If someone calls you a motherfucker, according to the Chaplinsky decision, if anybody calls you any name in the book, you're a fascist piece of shit, you stupid bitch. You can knock them the fuck out. Nah, Chaplinsky. This is for Chaplinsky, motherfucker. Gonna call me a bitch? I just punched you in your mouth. Nah, that's Chaplinsky. So there's another different standard for, where does freedom of speech end? I'm basically an absolutist, but I do think that there should be some restrictions. So I guess I'm more of a maximist, a utilitarian maximist. Not absolutist, because there are some things that need to be, but that's fighting words. I don't agree with fighting words. I think the Chaplinsky decision is bullshit, but that's the law of the land. It's the law of the land. You come up on me, call me a bitch, I just fucking deck you without even thinking about it. And then, last but not least, 1907, before the Clear and Present Danger Act, it was a bad tendency test. So 1907, Patterson v. Colorado, the primary legal test is the bad tendency test. So therefore, the speech is protected if it doesn't have a bad tendency. If it has a bad tendency to, harm the public welfare, then truth is not a defense in a contempt case. So they said if your speech tends towards bad tendency, you keep talking about that damn socialism, Bernie Sanders, that's a bad tendency. So Bernie Sanders probably wouldn't be allowed to talk about socialism, according to the Supreme Court case, Patterson v. Colorado of 1907. So this just shows you how the definition of free speech just keeps on changing throughout the years. There's some things that have been settled. I'm not for sure where the current Supreme Court stands on free speech cases. I don't know if they've passed any landmark cases or not. But this is, how many more cases do I have to point out to you to make my point? The Abrams versus the U.S. 1990 case. I guess I'll end it off with just speaking a little bit about this. But Schenck is not a criminal for just passing out, a one-page essay that he wrote. He did all that labor. He did all that work. Somebody should read it. And Frederick Douglass said that when you deprive a person of the right to free speech, you're not just hurting the speaker, you're also hurting the listener, because you're depriving them of possibly good ideas that they would like. That's paraphrased terribly from Frederick Douglass. But in the Abrams v. U.S. 1990 case, now this is, just like Schenck, but Schenck, his writings went directly against the draft, right? Now you can wear a jacket, say fuck the draft, right? I don't think you can burn your draft cards. I think that might be illegal because that's government property. We own that card. That's our property. You can't burn that card that forces you into the military service. We own that card. Okay, well then, shove it up your ass, you pieces of shit. So the Abrams case, this is where Wendell Oliver Holmes is going to contradict himself in the same year. Schenck is 1919, and the Abrams versus the United States is 1919 too. And the only thing that happens in the Abrams case where these Russians printed up 2 leaflets and they threw it out of a building in New York City. 2 leaflets. 2 leaflets. Printed it up. It was critical of